How awesome was that win last night on Sunday Night Football for the San Francisco 49ers? Let's talk about it here on the show. This is the 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. A lot to break down here on this Monday. And what was so great about how that Niners game transpired is you think back to everything that has kind of happened this year, right? The 49ers for much of the year, even going back to training camp and in the preseason, they've been injury riddled. They've been banged up. But they've had this level of toughness, mental fortitude, and resilience that has made watching this team an absolute treat and a joy. And last night against the Falcons, coming off that huge win for Atlanta over the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, their biggest regular season win in years, the 49ers throttled them. The Niners played bully ball and kicked the Falcons' asses. And Kyle Shanahan talked about this after the game, that he had a goal in mind. He wanted to get to 30 or 40 rushing attempts, and the Niners were able to accomplish that, but it took everybody, right? It took offense, defense, special teams. And the Falcons knew what the Niners wanted to accomplish as that game wore on, and the Niners said, you know what? We're going to run it, and we dare you to stop it. And San Francisco played with this level of tenacity, this level of physicality that wore the Falcons down throughout the course of the ball game. And San Francisco made a physical statement for all of those 60 minutes. And I just love the resilience, the mental and physical toughness from this football team, and the belief that they have. And the belief that the Niners have to go into SoFi Stadium and beat the Rams without a bunch of stars, to win this game against Atlanta, to hang tough against Tampa Bay, when you lose Fred Warner, when things aren't going your way. You know what that comes down to? That comes down to culture, and it comes down to coaching. And that win last night was a cultural and coaching win. And you can say whatever you want about Kyle Shanahan, but he has proven this year he should be the front runner for Coach of the Year, that he's an elite coach in the National Football League, and the Niners are lucky to have him. And the types of players that him and John Lynch value translate to what we witnessed last night, where even though they're without a lot of players, and they've lost the likes of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, and players have been in and out of the lineup on offense, they bring in players to their organization who love football, who fly around, who hit hard, who are fearless, who are willing to put their bodies on the line, who are willing to empty the gas tank. How many teams do you see across the NFL this year who are deciding to quit? You watch the Miami Dolphins, joke. The Tennessee Titans, mailing it in. The Las Vegas Raiders. At one point yesterday, they had 30 plays. The Chiefs had 30 first downs. Patrick Mahomes was taken out in the third quarter of an NFL game for Gardner Minshew. The Raiders have also said, you know what? We kind of quit. Season's over. The Niners could have done that. Trent Williams talked about this after the Nick Bosa injury. They didn't. They could have quit after the Fred Warner injury. And that was hard to watch. Your all-pro linebacker, the heart and soul of your team, gets rolled up on, and his ankle and his foot is pointing in different directions. And you could say, you know what? We're just going to fold here. The Niners do not do that because of the culture that is set in place by Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and the types of football players who they bring in. And now the Niners, with that victory on Sunday night, 5-2 in a wide-open NFL. And the season is there to be had. It is there for the taking. And we're seeing a young Niners team start to grow and evolve together, where not only do they have the opportunity to be special here in 2025, the future of this Niners team is looking very, very bright. And you didn't feel that way after last year. Keep in mind, the Falcons are a team with a ton of talent. Michael Penix, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, they entered with one of the best defenses in the NFL. Yet the Niners outmuscled them, and last night we witnessed a coaching masterclass. That came down to game prep, it came down to in-game adjustments, it came down to the team persevering and believing that they could win when the odds were stacked against them, And that's a Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, John Lynch victory right there. And all of this has to get Niner fans absolutely fired up because the sky is the limit for this team this year. And it's going to be hard to win a Super Bowl because of all of these injuries and the youth of this team. But I truly believe that as we sit here on this Monday, October 20th, the Niners are building something special. Now, as all the real ones know, it's a Victory Monday here on the 49ers Report. If you're pumped up about that Niners win, I want you to hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. I want 1,000 likes at least on this show. You know what coaching and culture give you? Coaching and culture puts you in a position to succeed. When you have a stable foundation and a stable organization, whether it be in professional sports, in the NFL, or in the business world, chances are you're going to be a well-oiled machine. And that's what we're seeing from this Niners team right now, led by Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, and John Lynch. When you have coaching and culture, it also helps maximize an individual player's ability. You might lose a Nick Bosa. You might lose a Fred Warner. But the collective effort due to culture allows other players to rise up. It gives them belief that they could still be successful. And for individuals who are now thrust into bigger roles, they have confidence in themselves. See how Bryce Huff played last night. See how Darrell Luter Jr. stepped in for Renardo Green. How the Niners collectively as a pass rush unit got after Michael Penix. How the offensive line, which had struggled mightily the first 6 games of the year, finally blocked so well in the ground game that they were terrific last night, and they deserve a bunch of praise. Coaching and culture gives you a game planning edge. Last night, a coaching masterclass for San Francisco over Atlanta. Coaching and culture instills belief and a standard that if you don't love ball, that you don't empty the tank, that if you don't put forward 110% effort, you don't have a place on this roster. For the Niners, you have to check all of those boxes to be a member of this football team. And when you have coaching and culture, it gives you a chance to win weekly. What did I mention just moments ago? You think a team like the Miami Dolphins or the Las Vegas Raiders or the Tennessee Titans would win a game like that last night? Win a game like we saw a couple of Thursdays ago when the Niners beat the Rams? No chance. But the Niners can compete in these games with a Christmas list of injuries, and they can win these games because of these 2 words: coaching and culture. Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh are showing this year they are truly elite. Shanahan has to be in the running for Coach of the Year. The fact that this team is 5-2 with everything that has transpired, it's incredible. And I think that's why Niner fans are enjoying this season so much. Robert Saleh is one of the best additions that any team made throughout the entire NFL offseason. Draft, free agency, coaching hirings. And George Kittle talked about that after the game, how he's so smart, how he brings such great energy. This is what I was saying after he was fired by the Jets and why he needed to come back to the Niners and why the Niners needed to sign him and bring him back as defensive coordinator. You are seeing leaps and bounds how much better this defense is compared to that Nick Sorensen-led defense last year. You're also seeing that Robert Saleh absolutely is head coaching material. I'd love to see him go somewhere where they actually have a quarterback, where they have a stable foundation, unlike the New York Jets. Look at what his unit did last night against this high-octane Falcons offense, which has weapons everywhere. And you see it with some of the window dressing pre-snap, some of the pre-snap motion, how some of those plays develop. That's a talented offense. Yet the Niners' defense, a skeleton crew, holds them to 292 yards of total offense. They shut down Bijan Robinson. The Falcons as a team, only 62 rushing yards, 230 passing yards, 5 of 11 on third down. What an effort from this Niners defense on Sunday Night Football. Speaking of impact, George Kittle made his return last night. His impact was felt immediately. Now, some of the casuals might say, Chase, he was only targeted twice. He didn't have a catch. You don't just have to catch passes in order to make a difference. And last night, George Kittle's performance certainly backs that up. The Niners entered Sunday Night Football as one of the worst rushing teams in the National Football League. And in the lead up to that Falcons game, I had said the return of George Kittle can really open up the pass game, of course, but the run game, because he's such a great blocker, but defenses have to account for him. With George Kittle on the field, the Niners' ground attack averaged 1.4 yards before contact. They accumulated 151 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Without Kittle on the field, minus 2.1 yards before contact, 12 carries or 12 rushing yards on 6 carries. You want to talk about how valuable a player is outside of the box score? Turn on the tape and look at how well George Kittle blocked last night. He's an incredible player. And this Niners offense is at its best when it's balanced, when the run game is humming. It might be cool for the fantasy folks out there when Mac Jones is averaging more than 300 yards passing per game, and that is his season average in his 5 starts. But offensive football is about efficiency. Offensive football, in my opinion, is about balance. You win Super Bowls by being a balanced team. You can't skew toward just being a running or a passing team. You need to be able to do both. It makes you more difficult to defend. And in Kyle Shanahan's offense and Kyle Shanahan's scheme, you need to have a successful run game because that's part of the reason why it makes a quarterback's job easier. It's how it opens up the pass game. And shout out to Kyle Shanahan for making some of those adjustments where the Niners were running downhill. Not a lot of the outside zone. As part of them playing bully ball, as I mentioned earlier, there was that downhill, tough, rugged, physical running attack where there was a lot of power and there was a lot of physicality. And it led to Christian McCaffrey turning back the clocks to 2023. CMC was incredible last night. 24 carries, 129 rushing yards, 5.4 yards per carry, 2 rushing touchdowns. Also made his impact in the pass game, including that 3rd and long, which set up the deciding score to make it a 2-score game. And how about this? The first 6 games of the season for the Niners, San Francisco had 9 runs of 10-plus yards. On Sunday Night Football, they had 8 runs of 10-plus yards. This has not been a Christian McCaffrey issue this year. It has been an offensive line issue this year. And maybe the Niners found something by running more power. Got to give credit where credit is due. I've criticized this offensive line a lot. They were really good last night. Can they make that more consistent? And with his ability to impact the game on the ground and through the air, with all of the all-purpose yards that he's had, Christian McCaffrey has put himself in the MVP conversation. And when I talk about MVPs, I always think of it in this manner, right? If you were to take that player away from that team, how would that team perform? How would that team fare? If you took Christian McCaffrey off this Niners team, this offense would be one of the worst units in the NFL. He can run routes like Wes Welker and Julian Edelman out of the slot. He's got Cooper Kupp-like footwork when he's a receiver, and that allows him to win in the pass game. And then last night in the ground game, Kyle Shanahan said, you're going to get a heavy workload. CMC said, that's fine. I was injured last year. I'm feeling good this year. Star-studded performance. You take CMC away from this Niners team, they are a bad offense. And that's why he should be in the thick of the MVP conversation. Because this team is different and they're maximized because of number 23. Also this, it is not even Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. The Niners won that game on October 19th. It is currently October 20th. Kyle Shanahan has won 4 games before Halloween with Mac Jones. 2 of the biggest offseason additions for any team across the entire NFL, the hiring of Robert Saleh and the signing of Mac Jones. Where would the Niners be without those 2 individuals? Well done, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Before we continue to push forward on today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for daily coverage of the Niners. As you can see here with the numbers to my right, we are approaching 178,000 subs. If you want Niners coverage every single day year-round, lock us in and join the movement. Our sponsor for today's Monday edition of the show, our friends at Prize Picks, the #1 fantasy sports app in America. pick, predict, play. Turn your takes into cash with Prize Picks. I know all of you know ball, but I want you to show me. Very easy to play. You get your picks in less than 60 seconds. You choose more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and they have a couple of new features here. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Josh Allen's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click, whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just somebody whose picks you like. Hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on Prize Picks. Little 4-pick power play for this doubleheader on Monday night. I don't really like the Monday night doubleheaders. I want a standalone game. Anyway, Baker Mayfield, more than 246.5 passing yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, more than 61.5 rushing yards. C.J. Stroud, more than a half passing touchdown. And Jackson Smith-Njigba going up against Derek Stingley, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Here's the deal. Download the app. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. What I loved about what this Niners defense last night, they made very timely plays in key situations, right? The Bryce Huff strip sack of Michael Penix, the Chase Lucas pass breakup on 4th and 1 that helped to shift the momentum of the game, kept the Falcons off the scoreboard, kept that drive going, and then a few plays later, obviously the Niners score a touchdown to go up by 2 scores. That pretty much helped to win the ball game right there. This Niners team also shut down Bijan Robinson. The Niners defense, the first team this year to hold Bijan to under 100 yards. He only had like 40-plus yards rushing. Spectacular performance. It took hustle. It took grit. It took effort. It took pursuit. It took great tackling. The Niners also got some great pressure on the quarterback, and you could tell Michael Penix was uneasy in that pocket. He was not comfortable all night long. I told everybody, Tatum Bethune, high football IQ player. He plays with really good instincts, feel, diagnosing skills. You saw it last night. He's a really good run defender, and what he lacks in elite athleticism, he makes up for it because he's such a smart player, and he can read where plays are going. And George Kittle also referenced this after the game. Robert Saleh has this innate feel for when to dial up blitzes. And obviously, blitzes can sometimes burn you because you leave bodies on that back end. That back end usually has to hold up in one-on-ones. You just have a lack of personnel back there, right? But if you time these blitzes up well, you can exploit an offense's weakness, you can get to the quarterback, and you can cause destruction. And last night, we certainly saw that. This is a Niners pass rush. It has been no secret that has struggled without Nick Bosa. Haven't been able to get to the quarterback. They've lacked quarterback hit, quarterback pressure, and sack numbers. Last night, though, as a team, San Francisco able to generate 22 pressures and 2 sacks. John Lynch said at the end of last week, I have belief in a lot of the guys on our football team, and we've got some guys who can get after the quarterback. Well, his players hurt him. Sam Okuwanu, 5 pressures and 1 sack. Bryce Huff, 5 pressures and 1 sack. The rookie Alfred Collins, 3 pressures. D. Winters with 2. Jordan Elliott with 2. Kevin Givens with 2. Tatum Bethune, 1. He was used as a blitzer from time to time. Chase Lucas on that corner blitz. Mykel Williams with 1. So that's 22 pressures and 2 sacks for San Francisco. When you're without Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, you need a collective effort. The Niners got that last night. Now, with that being said, that's one game. And I still think the Niners need to make a move for a pass rusher. You can get by with this linebacking core. But along the defensive line, a star pass rusher can change your entire defense. It helps out the rest of your defense at that second level and at that third level. Plus, you are now 5-2. If the Buccaneers lose, they're the 1 seed. They're 5-2. The NFL and the NFC is wide, wide open. And the Niners have shown they can compete when they play their A game with any team across the entire NFL. Don't forget to give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_senior. So much Niners content over there. Daily Niners coverage right here. You know the deal.